Hey everyone, I am joined by Samantha Richardson, award-winning designer and art director. Samantha brings unique perspectives to her clients and projects due to her firsthand international exposure to how other cultures view art and design and incorporating regional influences in her work and overall brand. Samantha also focuses on her personal experience of empathy-focused design and curiosity to bridge the gap between effectiveness and industry standards. Samantha has had the opportunity to work with BlackRock, various government groups, and local community organizations as well. Samantha, thank you for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Samantha, you have probably one of the best put together websites I've seen in a while. It's very clear that that comes with extensive years of doing design work. So I'd love to kind of know where did it all start? What got you into design and your overall career journey?
Oh, yeah. I went to UAB and really, I think where it all started is at the time, the program at the University of Alabama at Birmingham, they had this really cool computer lab where I was able to be around other creatives and really help filmmakers with motion graphics and graphic design. And that's probably where I discovered my passion for graphic design work. And I was fortunate enough to start working at an agency during college and worked there and have freelance and also have worked in-house at some of the companies that you've mentioned as well.
Was it just a case where you kind of stumbled into design, or was there a certain point in your life where you're like, hey, I know I'm going to do design. This is what I want to do?
Oh, I think I always thought as a kid, I always thought of myself as an artist because I would be the one at the party, kind of in the corner, but I would be drawing people's portraits, and then I would be like, here's your portrait. So I really relied on my art skills to connect with other people and bring value to other people's lives. Yeah, and then I guess when I went to college, I was also as a kid really interested in technology, but at the time I wasn't really sure how art and technology fit together for me. As a kid, I had a Linux Windows 98 computer, and my uncle would do coding and was a programmer. So I was always fascinated by technology. And then, of course, like many other millennials, I had MySpace and all that stuff, Neopets. And so I guess when I took my class, 101 class with my professor, Doug, it kind of just seemed like a natural fit, even though I was still learning what taste of good design meant. So the clean Swiss design aesthetic didn't really come natural to me at the time. But
I love that you brought up about clean design. I love that you put in air quotes as well, because there's a level of subjectiveness with it. But even just reviewing your portfolio, it's very clear that it's very clean. It's very clean designs. And I just would love to know, is there a checklist in your head that when you're done designing your graphic, you're looking, you're reviewing that checklist mentally and going, okay, cool, this has to be checked off for this to be a good graphic to me?
Oh, not really. Going back to the idea of the clean Swiss design, I read this book recently that I really enjoyed. It was called A Feminist Designer. I believe it was edited by Alison Pace. But it's really interesting because they talk about how this idea of design is is the visual language of the man, the corporate man. It's the visual language of the powerful corporations, and so this idea of representing other communities and not just representing the rich and corporate entities, but how do you represent people and communities? So that's why I put that in the air quotes, because I think that there are lots of other cultures besides corporate cultures which have their own unique visual language.
I would love to know a little bit how your international travel is how it's provided alignment in regard to your design, how you incorporate those various cultures you've been exposed to in your design work, things like that.
Oh yeah, I'd like to take a little bit of a step back, because I grew up in rural Alabama, and I never felt like I fit in. Really, I was kind of always a little bit weird. I was a theater kid, and always had the weird hairdos, and it was really when I moved from rural Alabama to where I went to college at UAB, where I was surrounded by people of so many cultures, and I met people who I'm now still very close with, And I had to like cleanse my soul of a lot of the conditioning that I grew up with. So for me, I would not claim to be like a cultural expert or like an empathy expert or anything like that. But I think ever since my world grew from being this like very tiny, limited beliefs that I grew up in that didn't serve me very well growing up, I've had the chance to just continuously expand my worldview by meeting new people and trying new foods and going to new places. Like, I'm a frequent visitor of Japan. I've got a trip to Japan coming up soon, and I just get so much inspiration, and it's such a privilege to know how like other people live and to just continue to expand my world. So that's kind of like the fun part of what I get to do at being a designer, is that people come in with their own expertise and their own worldview, and my job is to like get to know them and to bring my expertise to help them tell their story.
I love that. And as someone who grew up in a small town in Alabama and then went to UAB, you're right. Like, it was the same experience for me, where it was like I had to cleanse my soul. It was being exposed to so many individuals who are part of international programs, being their students, and just getting more and more exposure to different cultures. And it was great. I loved it. You mentioned that, you're a theater kid. You kind of feel like you never really fit in. You correct me if I'm wrong, but, it seemed like you still expressed yourself. And I think for some people that can be very challenging to have that confidence to do that, to even like know where to start. So I'd love to kind of know, just from your point of view, tips and tricks for anybody who is looking to like really dive into themselves and understand like who they are as a person and how to go about that.
Oh yeah, I think a lot of I'm pretty like passionate about mental health topics and things like that. And for me, I think my creativity came out of like a dissociative period of my life where like I needed to mentally go somewhere else. So I became fascinated by cartoons and by colorful animations that I would see on TV. And I remember like being able to close my eyes and see them and thinking like that was so cool. And then, all the social parts that came with that, like being able to draw and like, and all those things. So that's kind of how it came about for me. But I think like, I feel that my like art, and for many other artists probably too, that like making art is about like feeling comfortable in the world, like feeling like there's a space for someone like you. And by like building your own world or expressing yourself in that way, you can feel safe and get other people excited about like different ways of being. Yeah,
no, that makes total sense. One of the things I'd love to know a little bit more as well is when you're looking for other artists to connect with, in your experience, what's kind of like the best ways to find groups of people, other artists, so forth, to kind of like mingle with?
Oh yeah, I mean, as like throughout my I've been freelancing on the side for a really long time. Sometimes I do it full time, sometimes I do it part time. But as like a part-time, full-time freelancer, I have joined so many communities because you need help, you need mentorship at all kind of like phases in your career. You need like network with other people, kind of see what's out there. So I've like joined so many of these groups, and in my experience, the group that I'm starting to be in now is like a like really local and really small, and that has been very, very nice. So I would probably recommend finding local groups, local chapters of other designers to get around with. And I also, I get super anxious in social situations. And I think a lot of people in the design industry, they'll always say it's who you know, and you got to network, and, you see other people that have like figured it out, quote unquote. And so a lot of people will like feel the gravitation towards like, I want to associate with the people who have made it so that I can also make it, or maybe they'll help me up. And I'm sure that there's like merit to that big fish strategy in some ways, but I also prefer just to network with people that I just want to be friends with. It's a lot easier. And, as they grow, you're growing together and the relationship is more authentic.
I definitely think it's interesting how we can get caught up on like iron sharpens iron at times. Like we have to go talk to like the biggest person we can in the room, and it's not always the case. We don't always have to do that.
Right. And the best people are modest, I think. A lot of my really close friends are other designers, and I will be talking to them and they'll just tell me like stuff that they do, and I'm like, oh my God. So if you treat people based on like how, superficially how much street cred that they have, you miss out on the people who are just like really kind and humble and will surprise you with how much they know about their, specialties.
Yeah. It's kind of like the idea of like, when you're in like a meeting or something like that, and there's always the person who's like very quiet. And sometimes, unfortunately, you're in those meetings and people no one asks the quiet person their insights or anything. But then what happens is afterwards you start talking to the individual and you find that, oh, this person's like really on top of it. And it just, for them, it doesn't matter about trying to stand out in the meeting. It's just not an important aspect for them. That's really good words of advice for anybody who's listening. Like, you see the big fish in the room, great. Doesn't mean you have to go talk to them. There's so many other people in that room that are great at what they do. Go talk to them. Find someone else.
Yeah, and then the advice also, like, you won't have to like pay for advice from them. Y'all can just generally swap secrets and things like that. They're not trying to like milk you for anything, I guess.
If they're trying to charge you for your for their time or whatever, just to talk to you, it better be super valuable, because otherwise you're just kind of like, why am I having to pay to talk to you? That's weird.
I get so frustrated because, I mentioned that I've like freelanced full-time and part-time, and during the times I'm freelancing part-time, I'm like working a full-time job. And so the road to entrepreneurship for me has not been a straight line. It's been like a windy, like curvy road. So I never want to come off as someone who like knows all the answers, because I'm still trying to like figure out all the answers. And I think people that present themselves that way, you kind of have to like remember when you see someone else in the community who's like got it going on and you're like, oh, I want to be just like them. Like, I grew up low income, and I don't have like really family members or anyone like to like give me business. So I'm proud that I've like built my business kind of on my own merits, and like with the support of my mentors and my friends. But you got to be careful with people who know the answers, just like put it in a perspective that they they might have a family member in the biz or something like that. So you can't always compare yourself that way.
And you're absolutely right. Even, just the idea like they could already have someone who's really going to help them a lot behind the scenes. And I think sometimes it can become really easy for anyone in those positions to fall into survivor bias, where it's like, this is how you do it. This is how you survive. This is how you make it. And like you said, it's a windy road for everybody. It's not, if it's a straight line, something's a little off. Good for you if it is, but something's a little off. Let's pivot a little bit. And I would love to kind of know a little bit more about your process when you're working with clients in regards to like when you're starting to work with a client, what is like the onboarding process for you?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So for me, the first thing that I do, someone sends me an email and they're like, hey, I'm interested in working with you. The very first thing is that I have them fill out an intake form, which I put together on my website. And that has started to become like a way where I've curated some of the decisions that are really important to me on whether or not I want to take on that project. Like some new additions that have been really important is like, who's the decision maker on the project? I work really well with, the best case scenario for me is working with a strong visionary. So a person on the marketing side or filmmaker side, where they have a strong vision, but they need a designer to kind of like hear what they need and fill in the gaps, like make their vision a reality. So that's the very first thing. They fill out the intake form, and then from there, kind of deciding like based on what they put for the budget, the timeline, like how they describe their project, I can see if we're sort of like a good value fit. And then if I'm feeling good about it, the next step is to like hop on a video call, and then we'll have a chance to like delve into the project more. And then I send over like an estimate, and like kind of my like agreement and estimate are all in one. So it's just like a follow up with the estimate, and that has the terms of the agreement and a place for them to sign if they want to move forward. Then I collect a 50% deposit. And from there, I do kind of a range of different projects. Right now, my two structures are, I have like retainer clients, which they have like 20 hours per month to use, like kind of just really flexible on like different projects, from like motion design to collateral, website support, do like annual reports, like all kinds of stuff, really, posters. And then the other type is more kind of like one-off projects. And I've kind of, because I'm working in a lot in the nonprofit space, a lot of the one-off projects are more like annual reports and things like that, little brochures or brand identities as well. And from there, we usually do, depending on the project, between 3 to 5 rounds of revisions. And then I provide final files. That's pretty much it.
That's awesome. Hey, and that's awesome that like the full, the process, your own process. And that's a really big thing. Because I definitely think like as you dive into processes like that, it can become very like, you have to like adapt as you go near the end of it, it feels like, especially when it comes to like revisions and things like that. And one of the cool parts is it sounds like, you correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you're always qualifying up to the point where you send over the quote. I would love to kind of know, like, from your end, what are not red flags necessarily, but things that you're like, hey, when you're qualifying, if you see certain things, you're like, that has to be addressed.
Oh yeah, it's really nice like working part-time on the freelance too, because you can be more like picky about who you get to work with. But so a big red flags, I added a new question about like what's your preferred method of communication, because that's something that has come up over time. Not a phone call girly. I love email, video calls, or I'll do like a scheduled phone call, like that's cool. But if someone checks like phone calls as their preferred method of communication, that's probably going to be a red flag for me. Not that it's bad for all people, but for me, it is quite stressful. And then I would just follow up with them about that, like, hey, what do you mean when you said that? Or, another red flag for me is about the decision makers. Like if they're saying it's like going to be the CEO is going to be making the decisions, or a board is going to be making the decisions, unless it's like, if they say the CEO and it's not a really tiny company, that's like kind of red flag. Another red flags is that because I do work with nonprofits and other sort of change maker social impact groups, sometimes corporations will like approach me to like superficially make them seem more woke, I guess. Like they want to
I don't like that.
Yeah, it's kind of lame. Like they're like, can you just do your like community thing with, and that's like, well, like I believe strongly in working with people that, I believe in co-design, and co-design is when like you're inviting the community into the process. And because I'm one person with my own cultural experiences, it's really important to me that my clients are close to the communities that they're representing. If my client themselves is not directly in that community, then their client is directly in that community. So that's really important to me, that we're doing like authentic, like good design for good work, and not just performative design for good.
Yeah, and I love that you bring that up in regards to like engaging with clients who may or may not be engaged with their community, because it's like when you design for those clients, because it's not even geared towards their community, because they're not embedded in their community, it's kind of just getting created, and that's it. And it's like, it's hard to make a case study out of it because it kind of almost feels like you're designing on the idea that it's not going to do super well because you know that they don't know who their own audience is.
Right. Like I want to work with clients that share my values. It's not because I have the pleasure of working with so many clients who are just so inspiring and awesome. I think if I took on a job that was like, this corporation that was like, we want to do this offensive diversity and impact, diversity and inclusion, initiative, and I thought it was offensive, I wouldn't want to offend. First of all, I don't think it'd be good to do it at all. But then I'd have to also remember, like, it's kind of like squashing. It's minimizing the work that my other clients are doing as well. So, really trying to hold them up as like the gold standard.
Yeah, like that's a lot of value on your end that you provide because you care a lot about the client in the sense that if it's a bad client, you're not going to work with them. If it's a really good client, then they're going to have a lot of value working with you because you're going to care a lot about them because they care a lot about what they're doing. So I want to kind of pivot now. We kind of talked about red flags. Let's switch to green flags. What do you see that you're like, hey, this is going to be a great client to work with?
I get really excited when someone approaches me because of my previous projects or they like my aesthetic, because I feel like then we're going to work. If they're seeking me out because they like my specific design work, not just that I'm a designer available for hire, I feel like that means that we're probably going to have a good relationship. Like my longest client that I've had now for over 6 years, they found me because I was recognized for an Addy and for like some student work that I did. And because they were drawn to my like personal driven projects and my personal aesthetic, I knew that our values were going to be super well aligned, and it's been like a really good relationship. Other good things. Oh yeah, like I don't know. They always talk about like that Venn diagram of what is it, like good, fast, cheap, or something.
Yeah. Yep. That's it. Yep.
And so I'm really passionate about not doing free work. I feel like it does not, at least in my experience, it's never ended well for me. And then a lot of times, the work might not get used because there's just no value built in for the work. I've also kind of like struggled with like figuring out how to like discount work too. Like what's the right amount to discount and those things. But I would think like if you've got a project come in that you're excited about, but let's say, they want to compromise something. Maybe it's the budget, maybe it's the timeline. So you have to think about in the end, like what value that you're going to get out of the project. Like I had a project last year that did really well and got like a lot of, it represented my values really well. And it also got a lot of positive recognition in the community. So doing a project like that for a little bit of a discount, I'm always down to do that. And the clients that I really like working with, occasionally, and I'll send them a special offer or something like just for them because I really enjoy the type of work that we do together. But typically, like the more like the less haggling that you get, like the more people are just willing to pay your rates, typically like the more enjoyable the project is. And if you have to compromise, don't let people bully you into like compromising more than one thing. Like if you want it to be like a little bit cheaper, it's going to take a little bit longer, or find ways to make it worthwhile for you.
It's funny that you mentioned the Venn diagram because I feel like it's very accurate. Like it's very accurate. It's like either you are going to get it cheap and fast, you're going to get it fast and good, but it's going to cost, things like that. And I feel like when you try to do all three at once, number one, it puts you in a bad position. But number two, it devalues how you feel towards the client And number three, you need people you're working with, like just working alongside you. It puts them in a bad position too if they're having to fulfill it. Overall, just recipe for disaster. So personally, I've always been like, just pick two out of the Venn diagram. That's what we're doing. And preferably don't pick the cheap one.
Yeah. And like, if you decide to do discount work, like, I think it's really important to, let's say there's like a marginalized community that you really want to work with, but they don't have like a great budget. I think it's really important to outline like the boundaries along what that project is. You know, some people, bigger institutions, they have more resources to take on these projects. But as like a solo entrepreneur, you know, they might not have access to like a marketing person. They might not have all of these other things that then it can just be too much for one person, especially if you're trying to do it at a discount rate. So be really clear of if you're going to offer a discount to certain groups, like be very clear what they get at that price point.
Yep. In your pricing, do you typically put like a buffer price as well? That's kind of like, you know, if you price it out and go, okay, this is going to be a $3,000 project, do you typically quote for like $3,500? That way you have $500 in case it's like it ends up just something doesn't work out in the process and you have to do a little bit more than what you kind of agreed upon, things like that.
Yes, this is something I really struggle with because I have clients that I mentioned that I love working with that are repeat customers. And so I'll think, you know, a lot of times I don't want to punish those types of clients. So I've been thinking through my system of how do I incentivize my clients to, you know, I don't want to be organizing data or copywriting or like, you know, doing these other things, and that's going to drive up the cost for the client as well. So I'm putting up some measures to kind of help with that, whether it's like some sort of incentive that you get at the end of the project for like, you know, being on behavior or different packages or what. But for me, I quote hourly. So I think about how much time I need to get the project done. And like things I know kind of how much time I need for certain things, like, you know, like a certain amount of pages on an annual report, I know it'll cost like this much. But then I think what I'm going to try next is like having more explicit, right now how I've been handling it is like bill hourly, we stick to the scope, and if we go beyond the scope, you get billed additional hours. So that means like more revisions and things like that. Or, you know, you need more help and more support beyond our original scope. That'll cost additional. But what I've also heard that people are doing that I'm thinking of trying is that more explicitly outlining, like you get 3 rounds of revisions, and this is how much if you do 4, and this is how much 5, so that they can't. It's like a little bit more concrete, so they feel like a little bit less disgruntled when if they want more revisions.
I will preach from the heavens about putting revision limits in contracts. I have found myself in positions where it is a Friday, like it is a Friday at 5 p.m. and I'm on a Zoom call with a client, and they are breathing over my shoulder for me to do like small edits. And I just, that experience alone was enough where I was like, there has to be revision limits, because it takes those Fridays, those kind of occurrences, and it puts the client in the position of where they have to really think about what edits they want. And all of a sudden, instead of you having to sit there on a Zoom call with the client at 5 p.m. on a Friday when you're just trying to get off, now all of a sudden you'll get a batch of edits on Monday that's well thought out, because they know that they can't play that game anymore. They have to really think about what they want and work with you.
For sure. And so, like, some clients, I feel, some clients are just not going to be a good fit. And unfortunately, sometimes, you know, you can do all the work ahead of time, but then it just still surprises you when you're in the middle of the process, like, oh man, I thought I did everything I could to figure this out. But I think it's, you know, we have to be somewhat flexible to have like occasionally bad apples here and there. and not let the bad apples like kind of spoil the bunch. Something that happened for me recently is that I had a client, they did like 7 or 8 rounds of revisions on the cover of the annual report and kind of like blew their whole, like we got to the halfway point of the annual report and we're still doing like the cover, like at that point, it's kind of tough because, you know, that's really the onus is on the client to like, they know what the terms of the agreement is, and then they still ask for more revision. So happy to accommodate, but we will charge for these things now at an hourly rate.
Yeah. And I think that's a big thing too, is just like you mentioned, you can get frustrated in the situation of it happening, but at the same time, like just make sure you have structure put in place to where if they want to do that, if that's how they want to work with you, that you're not just doing it for free. Like you mentioned, no free work, try to avoid it. Ensure that, hey, if they want to see 16 options for cover photos for a report, and somehow, even though you may end up back on the second option at the end of the whole process, that's cool. That's coming out of their paycheck. They're not paycheck, but wallet. So
yeah. And I started putting in change orders because I found that clients that are like that, who start to be really needy and ask for a lot of attention, which again is like it's a pretty small portion of my clients, but it does happen and it does affect you. Like the clients they call a lot, or they're just like expect a lot of attention, but when the talk of money comes, they kind of like they don't want to pay. So I found that as soon as I noticed that that's starting to happen, you know, I might let one thing, like, okay, yeah, I want to be easy to work with. Like one thing happens, I might let it go. But kind of after that first strike in the process, I think it's like time for a change order. The sooner that happens in the process, I think the better. Because if they're going to keep asking and then not going to pay the bill at the end or something like that, it's good to know as soon as possible.
Yeah. And it puts you in a bad position because you're trying to figure out, are they going to pay you? And the whole time, you know, you have a certain skill that you're bringing to the table, and that skill could be applied to clients who are like more accommodating and understand that you get work done, you get paid kind of deal.
Yeah, definitely. And I recently got a lawyer, so that's really like when this happened, and I didn't get like paid at the end. It was like really affected my confidence because, you know, I've been doing this for a while and I'm really proud of myself, and I feel like I have some really good highs. But that moment that the client doesn't pay, it really shakes you a little bit. So having a lawyer, I feel like really gave me a lot of confidence to know that I'm supported if things go wrong.
Yeah. And, you know, to anybody listening, if you can afford a lawyer, like just have one on hand that you can work with if you need to. Because you might end up working with a client that says, hey, we'll pay you $30,000 over the course of 3 months to do work for us. You do it. And then you're sitting there going, okay, it's month 4. Are you going to pay or not? How are we going to do this? And the whole time, you know, you're dipping into your savings, trying to say, hey, I got to pay rent, mortgage, whatever. It's a bad taste in your mouth in those situations. And I think it can be very hard in those situations to step back and recover from them in a lot of ways. It's rare, but I've seen some people who will they'll go on Twitter or now X or whatever and basically like call out the client and kind of like throw them under the bus. And it's like a mixed feeling because you're like, they should be publicly called out because they essentially just attack this person's like livelihood in a way and trick them. But at the same time, it's like from a prospective client standpoint, even our clients who do like are good on pay and stuff like that, it kind of feels like it scares them away. Yeah,
for sure. It's like, I think the kind of in between that, I believe, I've thought about it. I haven't blown this client up yet, but I think if I really felt compelled to do so, I would do so on a designer exclusive, like a Slack group or something like that. Just let other local designers know what the risk of working with that client is.
My opinion, that's a good way to handle it. I would love to know a little bit about, in regards to like networking. We talked a little bit about like, hey, you know, like there's local communities, things like that. But where should people go when they're looking to find other designers to like talk to, work with, things like that?
Yeah. So some places where I've engaged with is I recently got a risograph printer.
I'm not familiar with what that is. What is that specifically?
So it's kind of like a screen printer inside of a Xerox machine, sort of.
Okay.
How it works, it's like an old Japanese printer from duplicator is actually what they call it, from like the 80s and 90s. And how it works is it burns a stencil into rice paper that then spot colors. You're able to buy spot colors and put them in drums. And the spot colors, you can print one at a time or two at a time for certain machines. So you can print these really vibrant inks like fluorescent pink, fluorescent orange, metallic gold, really cool, exciting stuff for like zines and prints and postcards and things. But it's a pretty like niche community. So a lot of my networking lately, I've been kind of like focusing on, like I did a Rizzo, I joined a Rizograph workshop last weekend with some girls that are in a Slack channel that I'm in for my city, for independent creatives. So it was really nice because, you know, we have these like niche shared interests that connect us, rather than being like, I've also done things like just general lunches with creative people or things like that. And that just felt a little depersonal for me. Like some people would use it to like pitch to people, or it's easier for me to start with like a shared interest, and kind of build a really a friendship, based on that. As far as like client networking goes, I haven't quite started networking in Atlanta, even though I've been here for clients specifically. I've been here for 4 years, and I need to start getting like my toes wet into that. And my strategy is to go to, I'm going to start going to like co-working spaces, specifically centered around like social impact interests and other interests that I have. So I just say like, look around to what's close to you and find other people to like nerd out with.
I wonder if there's any incubators or anything that also would be beneficial. Well, I guess incubators would be challenging because it's like a flip. It's such a flip of the coin if the groups in there have like the budget to even work with a designer, things like that.
Yeah, I've had a chance to like work with some different types of clients, and like them entrepreneurs and tech, it kind of in like Birmingham tech. And I've also worked social impact and filmmakers. That's kind of been more recently. I don't know what else to say about that.
No, it's cool. I know Adobe will do something in Atlanta every now and then. They'll do like networking events as well, but I haven't gone to one. I've been meaning to go to one. It's kind of a bit of a struggle because it's like on paper, it's like you live an hour south of Atlanta, but then you look at like actually like once you get into the traffic and try to get into Atlanta, it really becomes a 2.5 hour journey. And it's just like, so Atlanta traffic, I'm not a fan of it, but I understand it's there. So, okay, everybody, that was Samantha Richardson. Again, award-winning designer and art director. You can find her on LinkedIn at samrichco. You can also find her website at samrich.co and on Dribble as well at samrich. And finally on Instagram at samrich.co. Samantha, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today and kind of really just dive into your freelance journey, your overall career journey, and so much more.
Yeah, it was such a pleasure. Thank you for having me.